I'm Tamika D. Mallory.
And it's your boy Mysonne, the General.
We are your host of TMI.
Tamika and Mysonne's information, truth, motivation, and inspiration.
New name, new energy, but
same old us. Yes, it was my birthday. We just left my birthday. I had a ball.
They just left your birthday?
We just left my birthday. We just ended Taurus season, and Taurus season was amazing. It's my birthday. The amazing Malcolm X. Yo, listen to me. Malcolm X need a holiday. Right?
Yeah,
he need a holiday. You know, on 125th Street on Malcolm X's birthday, they shut the street down from 1 to 4. All of the stores. From, I don't know exactly where it starts at, but all the way from probably like 5th Avenue to like St. Nick, they shut all the stores down. And none of the stores are open out of respect to Malcolm X. But I think it should be a national holiday. Like, he's done so much, and what he's meant to our culture, especially black culture, it needs to be a national holiday. But it was beautiful to watch all of these big stores, Foot Locker, and all of these stores close down in respect. I was in the gym working out, you know, in Harlem, and he's like, nah, we shutting down. So
that's wonderful.
You got to come back at 4 o'clock. So my Taurus brother Malcolm X, we appreciate you, God. We love you. Yeah, and I had a beautiful birthday. We had a dinner. Friends was there. Showed a lot of love. Beautiful birthday cake. Birthday cake was fire. That beat cake, shout out to beat cake, that mic with that chain.
Beat Cake, New York.
Ooh, that thing was fire, man. So
Miriam is over there. She's the owner, and she does a really good job. She's really community oriented also. She's a good chick.
Dope. It's a dope birthday. And my Knicks.
They're
my Knicks now. Listen.
That all happened in the same
all this happened
day.
in the same. Listen, my birthday, the Knicks clinched to go to the conference finals. The first time in 25 years. Shout out to Jalen Brunson. Shout out to Karl Anthony Towns. Shout out to the whole team, man. It was just a team effort.
Then you got to see Carmelo.
Then I seen Melo. Yo, listen, this was just a full circle thing. Then the next day, I was at Afro Creek in Baltimore, where I seen my brother Carmelo Anthony, and I congratulated him because it's the first time I seen him since he's been inducted into the Hall of Fame. Shout out to Carmelo. Give him a round of applause. Listen, Carmelo is in my top 3 players of all time, and it's Allen Iverson, Carmelo, and Kyrie. These are my favorite 3 players. Anybody who knows me knows that those are the people I don't play about. And it was before that, it was Isaiah Thomas. So it was Isaiah, it was Allen Iverson, and then we went to Carmelo, and now Kyrie is probably pretty much my favorite because it's soul ties. But
why Carmelo don't play basketball anymore?
Melo said, I just heard him do an interview the other day when he was talking about he was supposed to retire on his 20th season. You know, he said he was doing 20 seasons. That's what he wanted to do. But he didn't. He retired right at the beginning of his 19th season because he said he was going to retire when his son got into high school because he wanted to focus. And that was a thing he said. And he said it was time for him to just leave the game, you know. And he wanted to do it, but he said, when my son get in high school, that's when I'm done. And he said it was time for him to do it because that's the word he gave. His son was like, "Nah, go ahead." He gave him an extra year. He said he actually was going to retire around the 18th, but he went an extra year, but he didn't get to that 20. So that was his reasoning for why he didn't finish out his 20th season. LeBron is in his 20th season now. So, you know, just understanding it's a lot. 20 playing basketball at the level in the NBA for 20 years is a lot of wear and tear. He just really wanted to say he wanted to pour into his son. He wanted to.
Because his son's going to be.
Definitely going to be big time. He's one of the top players in the nation. So shout out to him, man. It was just a beautiful experience. And the Knicks is in the finals. Like, just watching them win, and it was a blowout. Boston got smacked in the Garden. You know what I'm saying? We was like right down the block. We in Chop House, and they was getting smacked in the Garden. So the whole city was just lit up. It was just a beautiful time, man. You know, and I'm just happy for the Knicks. I'm trying to see if we can get some seats somewhere, maybe in the nosebleed, something. I just want to be in the Garden just to feel that energy. So anybody who got a ticket for me, listen, I'm here.
Still take a birthday.
You know what I'm saying? I'm still my birthday. The game is actually tonight. You know, and I got my Knicks stuff on. I'm going to be out there probably. Scalpers, you got a ticket. So I don't need anything. I'm still taking presents for my birthday. So if you got some Knicks tickets hit me up. It's going to be too late. Y'all going to see this too late. But anyway, I'm going to be out there anyway. And by the time this airs, you're going to be like, wow, the Knicks is going to kill some. The Knicks don't kill some. Love them, the Knicks. What you got to say about the Knicks?
Yeah, I'm very happy.
Very happy?
Of course, I'm from New York.
That's
Anything
right.
New York, we with it. Love it. Amazing.
See
I
this?
don't know anything that be going on. I know a little bit basketball. I used to have season tickets. I used to go to basketball games all the time. And so now what I do is I clap when everybody else clap. And then I'm in the mix, and that's it. I'm happy. Yay, go. New York.
Bachers.
Brings me to my thought of the day. So on a more serious note, I was thinking about, and I think one of the things that I pray God has given me that makes me a leader and a better person every day is not that I always make the right decisions. It's not that I always see things the right way. And it's not that I don't live my life like everybody else, which is in contradiction, right? Mm-hmm. Like I always say that to you, that I feel like we have to acknowledge it, though, that, you know what, I don't see this the same way that I would if you were not my friend or you were not somebody that I admire or if it didn't benefit me in some way. Mm-hmm. And we have to acknowledge that. It's not that it will change the outcome or change how you feel, but it will at least keep you honest to yourself,
Everybody has
and
biases.
I think that's really important. And so on each one of the situations that I'm bringing up, I have various feelings myself, right? Mm-hmm. I am deeply crushed by the entire situation with Puff and Cassie and this whole case. I'm completely crushed by it. Listening to or reading testimony hurts. I'll never be able to unsee the video. Having somebody as influential as Puff, somebody who I have a very good relationship with, end up in the situation that he's in is painful. Knowing that those kids could lose their father for life in terms of him being in prison. I mean, it's so many dynamics that a person who is a little more up close, I'm not in the house, so it's not that, but a person a little bit more up close that spent a lot of time talking to you and, working with you and different things, it hurts. It hurts. And that's all I can say. People like, oh, that it hurts, and I think that people believe that when we are public figures, that we're not human. Some stuff just hurts. You don't even know what to say, right? You don't even know the right words to use except to say that it hurts, and everything that is playing out in this trial, when it's your friend and somebody you love that is being accused of some really, really horrific things, you can literally just say, this is very painful. It is very painful. And to the extent that any of this stuff is true, which I am absolutely inclined to believe that some part of it is, that's even more painful, right? And so I just have to keep reminding people of that, because I see folks in my comments and my DMs, like, why are you not saying anything about this or that? I don't know what y'all consider to be friendships. I don't know. Like, I'm not getting ready to go out here and be in a Free Diddy t-shirt, right? Like, that's not something that you will see happen. But I'm also a human person that has the right to say that it takes a lot to process, especially when you've never witnessed this side of a human being that you care about, and then these are the things that's being stated about them. Like, I don't know why people don't understand enough to say. It's like a mother who finds out that her child, or hears that her child is being accused of killing 3 people and doing all this stuff. You could be like, damn, this is really messed up. But if you're expecting the mother to come outside and be like, oh, I hate my child, that generally doesn't really happen. Mm-hmm. And so I have to put that at the forefront. I don't want people to think that I'm afraid or that, you know, I'm naive or any of that. You know, I think that's important. I want to be honest. So I think that's important. So that's one. It's Cassie, right? One woman that I want to reference is my thought of the day. Then you have Haley Bailey and DDG, which Haley Bailey hasn't said anything, right? But in that situation, I don't know either one of them, but I love both of them. I think they're so cute, you know, cute kids. And I pray for both of them. But I can tell you that having a son at that age, you feel like, damn, understanding everything. We done had fights as young people, fighting and carrying on. Do you want to see this young boy's entire life fall apart because of an incident that none of us were there for? We don't know exactly what happened. And it's possible that he was abusive, right? It's possible, if that's what she said, it's possible that he was. Yeah. It also could be that he, you know, they got into it back and forth and he pushed or did whatever he did, which is something that generally would be behind closed doors and we would never know about it and you wouldn't lose your job or whatever as a result of it. Then you have the situation with Meg and Tory, which I have very, very strong views about a lot of things around that situation, right? So when I think about my own personal contradictions, the way that I can move through various feelings depending on who the people are and what the situation is, I really have to ask myself, how is it that 3 different women in 1 week are telling their stories of abuse or harm, and all 3 of them have been considered to be liars by a large, large group of folks? How is it that 3 different women tell their stories and I'm not saying it's the whole world because I'm sure there are more people who believe them and support them, but there is a large movement that as soon as some of these women speak, the world says didn't happen.
I understand exactly what you're saying, but I think it's relative to where we're looking for the information, right? When we look in social media is a cesspool of negativity. You know, especially in the social media we look at, they demonize women and black women all the time, no matter what they say, right? But I think if we look at a large scale, there are many people, like you said, there are many people that say this had to happen or we believe these people. So there's going to be, when you put something in a court of public opinion, everybody's bringing their own biases, right? Like you said, based on your situation, some people are DDG fans, some people are Haley fans, right? So their fans are going to be like, oh, he's lying, she's lying. So that's what's going to happen.
But I don't know if it's all fans either, my son. I think that there are people who might not even know DDG, didn't care nothing about Tory. Maybe they know Puff, maybe they don't. Maybe they like him, maybe they don't. But they are instinctively conditioned to say that if these men are in any kind of trouble because of what these women say, that is to bring a black man down.
Well, I don't think that. And Puff, I think Puff has lost in the court of public opinion. I think he was demonized immediately after the videotape come. People, he lost all support. You don't see anybody. I don't see one person publicly.
There's people out there.
I mean, I don't know.
Now all of a sudden you got Boosie and different people.
Yeah, because Boosie, he's basing off evidence, things that he's listening to. He's basically saying that based on this evidence that happened here that I see, it looked like Cassie was involved in the same shit that we. And a lot of people look and say she did not deserve to be beat. You know, we don't know the level of control she had, but when based off just relationships that the average man has with a woman, and we looking at the level of communication that they had, it looked like 2 people that was engaged in the swinger lifestyle, you know, and that's how they lived. It was toxic. He was abusive to her. He beat her ass, and that's 100% wrong. But most people don't believe that he was forcing her to engage in sex. They just And there are people who say that she did. They believe she did. He controlled her mind. But there's going to be a dynamic of people that say that they don't believe that.
But that's
what comes with it.
Okay, well, that's fine. In that situation, there are going to be people who say that she was definitely a willing participant in all of that. So we're not going there. But as long as people understand, I think that's why it's important that the guest that we have coming up today, that he's not being charged of forcing her to have sex per se. That is not the center of the allegations.
Those are one of the criteria under with sex trafficking is either coercion or force.
Coercion.
Exactly.
And that coercion is very
it's the same thing.
It's
coercion,
very nuanced.
It's nuanced.
It's nuanced.
But coercion means that you didn't want to do it, and I convinced you outside of your normal realm.
Right.
I did something to put you in a position or inspire you or motivate you that was to do something that was against your best.
But I'm not sure, which we'll have to get into, but I'm not sure if sex trafficking is only about force, because I think that a person could be a willing participant, but if they are paid, that's why I keep trying to tell people that Cassie is...
Well, she wasn't paid to have sex.
But that's not what we talk... See, but everybody continues... We're looking at that case the wrong way, because everybody is continuing to say he didn't pay her this and the third. That is not what he's being accused of, right? Sex trafficking might extend beyond Cassie to whether or not sex workers are part of that. We don't know. We have to wait and see what is at the end result. And throughout each person,
I'm going to read the indictment
because when I was reading,
because I want to know if the indictment is saying that he sex trafficked Cassie or he sex trafficked these other people.
Yeah,
if he's saying that he sex trafficked her, if she was one of the victims of sex trafficking,
yeah, it might be
where a lot of
where
people
feel like it's definite. They don't see it. I see what you're saying on that, but I do think that sex trafficking, from what I read, because I really have been trying to understand, because I know that our instincts, depending on our experiences, like as a survivor of domestic abuse, sexual abuse, my instincts sometimes can be, my instincts can take me in a direction that facts don't even matter. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because I just know it's a trigger. But then sometimes, again, that's why I'm saying I want to be very clear about the contradiction that it's like your body goes through many, many things, because just hearing it makes you be like, oh my God, like I can't even fathom this, and facts don't matter. But then when you know somebody, you begin to say, well, I don't see them that way. You know what I'm saying? So you go through all of that. But I'm just saying, in order to temper my own mindset, I've been reading. And in sex trafficking, the prostitute can tell you, I'm with it. But if they got paid and moved through moved to another state, that is trafficking. Yeah, and so, I don't know. I don't know.
If this prostitute was strictly for the use of sex and you were paying her to have sex,
or he or him
or him or whatever,
but y'all will say it never happens. You never hear when a man.
You don't. That's not even a thing.
Okay, that's not even.
I said somebody to pull it up. I ain't seen nobody pull up, but anyway.
No, women. You wanted somebody to pull up that women have been accused of sex trafficking, and they have. I mean, and convicted of young boys. Yes,
I've have yet to see it.
That has happened. But anyway, let me get my. So my thought of the day is specifically around the idea that there are 3 women who all 3 of them are telling their stories of abuse. And there's a large group of people in our society who instinctively have said that these women are lying or exaggerating their situations. And I wonder, right, whether or not we are fostering an environment where women will just completely stop telling their stories.
Well, that's a very serious thing.
And I know men ain't gonna tell their story, because we don't even believe. Men can say they were sexually assaulted.
And
People don't believe it. People laugh at men.
Yeah.
People tell you don't say it. And it's really hard. It's so hard to reconcile all of that when you know that, you know, women are often accused of lying or whatever. You deal with that. And then at the same time, you want to believe women. It's like, it's so much. And you want to protect the brothers because you got the brothers who are like, yo, they always, you know, take us down or whatever. It's so many dynamics. And I just wonder if there are, which I believe, I know there are women out there who are just like, you know what? I was thinking about saying this happened to me or he did this to me, but I think I'll just be quiet. And some people will say, well, that's a good thing because it'll stop folks from lying and, you know, from making up stories on people or exaggerating stories. But is that what we want for our daughters? I don't know how. I don't have an answer to this. I just know that it's very problematic when people can look and see where if these women are all not believed, if they're all lying, they're all fabricating, they're all whatever, then I don't have a chance. So I might as well just be quiet and just take my abuse on the chin. Or, I don't know.
I mean, I want anyone who's been assaulted, who's had, you know, someone take advantage of them to be able to feel comfortable coming forward. You know, but at the same time, you don't want that to be weaponized against men if they're not engaging in that activity. So we just got to find, you know, we got to find a way to be able to cipher out the truth and be able to, and it's very hard, right? Because it's people like you saying prior to you watching Diddy on camera putting his hands on Cassie or getting any information, this is not the person you know.
Right.
You know, that's not Diddy, you know this kind person, funny person who embraced you, showed you love. So that's what we all are.
You want to believe the best about everybody.
And that's what we all face with every time. We're faced with, especially when you look at larger-than-life individuals, we're faced with the fact, like, nah, this can't be this person because this is my favorite rapper. This is my favorite basketball. He couldn't be that type of person because we have this image of those individuals in our minds. So we want to give them the benefit of the doubt. You know, we don't want to believe that our favorite singer would lie about somebody putting their hands on them. We want to believe, so that everybody wants to believe, and in the court of public opinion, that's what it is. But in the reality, it's based off when these situations happen, it's a case that goes to court, and and they have to draw out the facts, and they have to come to terms of what the reality of that all is. So we, as human beings, we're always going to have our personal, you know, preference and our biases and who we love and who we don't like, and we're going to demonize some and we're going to make other ones angels. That's just the reality of what it is. I just hope that we get comfortable with using discernment, looking at facts, you know, just being careful to just put things on individuals without seeing any facts, and then being able to look at the facts and come to a conclusion. And even in that conclusion, understand that your conclusion might be wrong. The courts might get it wrong. We might demonize somebody, and the courts might come back with evidence to say, oh, we were wrong about this. It's people that's been convicted of murdering people and all types of heinous crimes, and they come back with DNA and be like, oh, this person never did that. So we're never going to all get it right. But we just have to give people levels of grace. We have to give people levels of understanding. We got to understand our own biases. You know, we got to in turn and be very aware and understand that people don't see things the same way that you see it. There's going to be somebody that said, that person did it. And you're going to be like, no, why did you get it? And based off their own, you know, interpretations and their own experiences, they're going to draw a conclusion. Because this girl might have said the same exact shit that happened to you. And you might be like, nah, I know that. That's something that I've seen. The guy might say the same shit that happened to me. And I'm like, yo, I remember a girl did that. That shit is crazy. Like they did. So we all are using our own internal, you know, situations to put to
perceive whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. To put the reality of what's going on in front of us, and we have to understand that's what we're doing.
But I also never want to get to a place in my life. It's a real, like, I love this about me, that 45 means really thinking deep and challenging self. And I live to tell the story. My memoir does a lot of that. I never want to get to a place where I'm not also standing 10 toes down and supporting our brothers, knowing that the system does railroad us as a people, and particularly Black men. But at the same time, I always want to be in a posture that no matter how much I know you, no matter, you know, how much I may love you, no matter whether I admire you from a distance, think you cute or whatever, that I can still listen to, and that's not just for men, women also, that I can still listen to things and be able to say without hesitation that this is just wrong.
And you should be able to say that. I'm ended by saying this, right? I have friends, people that I love and dearly that have hurt people, that have shot people, that have killed people, that have all these things, and I love them to death. You know, they did their time. They've been held accountable for it, and they came home and they changed their lives, right? And that's what grace is. That's understanding the reality of life. And when we look at this situation, any of these situations, none of these people took anyone's life, right? And we might hate what they did, but they're not irredeemable, right? And that's what right now when we look at Diddy's situation,
it's true, because these people, women told me they would never look at Cassie. She's disgusting.
Yeah, so I'm saying,
like,
none of these people are irredeemable. They've lived a life. They have things that they've done in their life. And when we look at even the last few years of Diddy looked like he was doing self-reflection. I don't know, because once again, we don't know. So prior to what he was doing, he might have been, like he said, he was in a dark place. And I want to give him the grace to say, damn, maybe you do recognize what you did wrong. Or maybe you did. I don't know. But I understand that he's not irredeemable, because I have friends and people that I love who have taken people's lives, and I love them, and I would sacrifice my life for them right now.
I mean, so, I hear you, and I respect.
And he needs to be held accountable, and when he does the work, and his accountability comes for what it is. But if somebody took somebody's life and they home free, Diddy shouldn't have to do life in jail.
Well,
I just don't say that.
I guess where you and I differ, because taking people's lives can be looked at in a lot of ways. Just because a person is breathing doesn't mean they still have life. Sometimes the decisions that we make can take more from folk, can force I'm not saying that they can't overcome it. I'm just saying that there's certain things that you could do. And I'm not talking about, oh, you cheated or you lied or this. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying there's some actions, especially when you are physically abusive to another individual, that can destroy parts of them, right? Physically and mentally.
I believe that.
So I guess what I'm saying is I struggle with being able to get past physical violence against anybody, but particularly against women. That's a hard, like that, how we all have these different red lines. And when it comes, it's like Gaza. There are people who are like, oh, well, I can't be more concerned about what's happening in Gaza when Brooklyn is an issue. Now, Brooklyn is damn an issue. Brooklyn, Bronx, St. Louis. There's so many places where our people are suffering and caged in and starving and being killed in many different ways. And if you really want to keep it 1,000, it's a genocide that happens against Black people every single day in this nation. But I still have to look at the bombs bursting in the air and say that I feel or I have a sensitivity that that's a red line for me.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying you have to understand that there are some people that it's not.
I do.
In any situation, you got to understand that some people are going to say, damn, that was messed up and this and that. But this person's not completely responsible for that. It's going to be people that have shot somebody or done something, and somebody's going to say, I love that person and the work that person is doing and the way that person is growing. I feel like I want to embrace that person. I want to give that person another shot. And that's how life is. Your red line might be somebody's white line.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, I don't want to be around nobody who their white line.
And you shouldn't want to be around them. My red line is Trump. I don't want to be around them. But there's people that I love that tell you that they love Trump. And the reality is, it's cool. And there's other people, oh, come on, politics shouldn't separate you. To me, it does.
It definitely.
And that's just my reality.
I agree. So there's that. There's life. But I think as long as we are honest about our feelings and where we stand in these things, that, at least we can begin to move our communities further by dialogue that is painful and difficult. It's like sexual assault, it's like abuse in the household. You know, people don't really like to talk about it, but the only way to correct it is to root it out. You got to bring it up. Like, hey, this is something that's going on. So I'm not telling people go tell your personal business, put all your business in the street. Because be honest with you, these people on this internet, they don't care nothing about your life. They don't want to help you. They don't want to support you. They just want your gossip, so then they can go take that and mix it with some other gossip. And then that's it. They just have a great time gossiping about you. And you'll never know nothing about what's going on in their personal life, because they learned a long time ago not to tell you about their personal life, because they don't want anybody to see that. So that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we as influencers and people who have folks who listen to us, people really want to know, like, what does it feel like to like experience all these things? And I think we have a responsibility to unpack it. So there's that. Now on to the TMI. I think people are doing too much on this, but some people might not feel that way. So New York City Housing Authority is opening applications for employment. That's the projects where I grew up. They are opening applications for employment to people who have no educational background. And I sat for hours and read the comment section. And when I tell you that the classism on social media between the upper blacks and the lower blacks is serious, okay? Because all these people I know, because, you know, you can see your own people when they make comments. That's, you know, those comments stick out. Oh, that's ridiculous. That's what's wrong with our society. That's what's wrong with the projects anyway. And you don't got to have no education and this and that and the third. And you could get an education for free. And we should never be giving jobs to people with no education. And I personally think that, like, I don't agree. I think that's a little bit too much, that just because a person doesn't have formal education, that means they're not capable of having a job.
I don't think it means that they're not capable. I think what it is they want to understand that somebody has applied themselves to something, has acquired some certain levels of degrees to where it shows that they're disciplined to something. But I think it should be based on the merit of whatever the job that you want to do, right? If you can show me, or I give you a trial and you can do the job and you don't have a formal education, then cool. There's some people who have integrated from down south, and people who didn't have the education, didn't have the roads to be able to be educated. So they came here looking for a different life. They've been working with their hands their whole life. They know how to sweep. They know how to do the certain things.
They know how to fix cars, plumbing, because they grew up with a father, uncle, or aunt.
And I think those people should get the opportunities to do it.
But I don't think they're saying they're going to give you a job if you don't have any skills. And that's the way it sounds.
Skills and education is two different things. I think it should be skills over education, because obviously we live in an era, in a time when Donald Trump is the president. There's nothing off. Anybody can do anything. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah, but he doesn't do it well.
But it doesn't matter. But these people voted, and they love him. So if you try to tell me that Donald Trump could be the president, then somebody with no formal education could work for the housing. That's it.
Well, there's that. I think New York City Housing Authority, they got to do a lot of internal work, though, because what will happen is that these people who are classified as no education or low education will be treated as such as well.
But the thing is, the reason why they did that is because they've been hiring those people. Because when you was looking at housing and the people that was doing sweeping and mopping and all that, them people that have no education, they knew somebody and they was ready to do the job better than anybody else. A lot of people was not educated. They wasn't educated.
Well, I get that. I'm saying that people who are classified in the group of no education or low education
will be scrutinized.
They're easier to be discriminated against and mistreated, because you need your job, and so I could talk to you any kind of way. I could, treat you any kind of way. So I think that there has to be provisions where that's being monitored, that they don't become the lower class slave men or enslaved.
Makes sense.
So I do think that. However, I applaud, if they do it properly, I applaud the New York City Housing Authority for giving opportunities to people who are boxed out of so many places because they don't have a paper to prove themselves. I just applaud them for that. So, no, so do I understand what some people are concerned about? But I will also challenge people to think that if this individual who's living in your buildings, by the way, you can't go to certain schools, you can't do this. I mean, access to education is not as easy as people think. You say it is, but there's some folks out here, they don't even know, if the application process is intimidating, or they've been, caught up in various situations, maybe coming out of prison. It's a lot of things. And the question is, if they can't get work somewhere, then what you think they're going to be doing?
And that's that on that. Let's go to our guest, our lawyer.
Our lawyer.
Brother. Our lawyer, our brother. He going to give us some insight today.
That's right. As usual, we have one of our friends. Well, as you said last time, more of a brother than a friend to us. That TMI.
And we need him. We need him.
TMI on our show. We often bring a lot of our friends and people who are doing incredible work in the community across the country. And this brother is no different. He is our attorney, first of all. So I don't know, because if you are the brother, is there still attorney-client privilege?
Yeah, the only way that doesn't work if you're married. So you always got the privilege.
Okay, we just got to know that we need to know the law.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Let's get to it. Yeah.
And so Royce is our attorney. First of all, he's family to us, but he has been with us through many, many circumstances and situations, including the work that we engage in out in the community, fighting for families like Ramarley Graham, who was killed by police officers in the Bronx in his home, and right in front of his grandmother, something we've never been able to get over as a community. And Royce has been involved in a bunch of other cases, but he's also does some corporate work, keeps us out of trouble, makes sure our paperwork is in order.
That's right.
So when we say we know attorney Royce Russell, we know attorney Royce Russell. I think the most impressive side of your life is being an attorney to many people who we won't name them now, but being a criminal defense attorney in private practice today. However, you were a prosecutor on the state and federal level in New York. And so you have a lot of pieces of things. You got your hand in a lot of different pots, attorney Royce Russell. And we appreciate you for coming to the TMI show today. But more than that, we just appreciate you for being our friend.
Well, thank you for having me.
And he's sharp, too. You see that boy's sharp.
Yeah, that's what he does. He's a fashion attorney. But, I feel like you started a trend in the fashion thing.
You think?
No, I know, because I remember some of the other attorneys not really dressing as well as you do. Because, I grew up around attorneys. I done been around many attorneys and preachers is two things two groups of people I know well. And you started with the bow ties and the whole thing and making everything sharp and match really well. And then I started to see other cats getting into it as well.
It was a shocker to the federal system. Right?
Going
the
to
federal
court.
system is blue and gray and black. So now you come in with a seersucker suit that's red or green, or you got pink and green, and they're like, well, what's going on? Like, what's happening? And sometimes they have no choice but just compliment you. Because you're doing the work. Because you're doing the work. It doesn't impede how you proceed. It's who you are.
But do you suggest your clients show up to court in pinks and greens?
Oh, no, we show up sharp. Because you're a reflection of me, right? We have to set a stage, right? It's about setting a narrative, because what the judge sees is what's on the paper. We're trying to set a visual narrative, and we want you to buy into that narrative. Now, we're not selling you anything, but we want you to look at this narrative. He has respect. She has respect. We're here today. We're going to deal with what we have to deal with. We're looking straight. We're not with our hands folded behind our back. We're not looking down. Those
You
are just the
give a
rules.
tough-
Just
You
the
give a
rules.
tough
That's just
set
the
of rules
That's
to
just
the
rules.
to the client.
That's just the
that
rules.
makes sense. 'Cause
You know,
being on trial, understand those things right there.
Right.
Right. When you have a lawyer that understands those dynamics. I didn't have a lawyer that understood those dynamics, that even explained those things to me. So you in there, and you don't understand how the jury is looking at you. You don't understand how the judge is looking at you. And when they think you lack respect, or you got your hands behind your back, is a level of submission, like you admitting that you have some level of all these things you don't know, and you're a young boy and you scared for your life in the courtroom, and you don't have a lawyer to give you these jewels and make you understand how your perception actually is
your reality.
Is your reality
Wow.
in this moment.
we talk about corporate court etiquette. We're on trial. I don't need for you to do a lot of writing and a lot of hitting me. What that reflects? If you
It reflects that you're scared and you feel like they said something that might reflect you or make you look guilty.
Incriminate
right.
you.
That's important. So now, if I'm sleeping and I see you feverishly do something as a juror, now I'm paying attention to what's going on here. I might have been daydreaming.
Didn't
look,
even hear it.
Look, people are people. They come in with problems. They come in with things
Not
that they
wanting
have
to be
do.
there anyway.
They come in, right? And the only thing you have to do is alert their attention to where their focus should be. And as soon as you hit me to the left or write the note and give it to me, and then I got to say, stop doing it. And then you see this conversation going on where I'm like, don't do that. And that person is talking. Now I'm missing that. I'm talking to you. The perception is something is important here. And you don't like it, meaning the defendant doesn't like it. Or why you giving Mr. Russell a hard time, defendant? You see how sharp he is? He nice. He said hello in the morning. He picked us. I remember we like him.
But we're not too sure about
You know what I'm saying?
you.
We like him, and I like to be liked. So you like me because sometimes it's the facts, or it's the person that's relaying the facts. And sometimes the person that's relaying the facts can will a victory. Doesn't happen a lot in federal court, but it could happen when you will a victory. I like what he's saying. I like what he's doing. I see how he manipulated the facts. He seemed like a good dude. His client is sitting there calm, cool, and collective. You'd be surprised. We hear all these stories about correction officers and those in law enforcement, how they mingle with the inmates. You'd be surprised with jurors how they may fantasize over the fact that, look, that guy doesn't look that bad. That guy looks like he's a good dude, or she's a good person. And they hear the facts. Because I think real deep down, people want to do good. They may not always do good, but they want to do good. And they don't want to go home with, I'm the cause of doing A or B. And so if you can present a package that is formidable, that is respectful, then that meets them a little bit of the way. Don't get any false hopes. It meets them a little bit of the way, not all the way, because the facts are the facts.
That's a fact. We brought you here, Royce, because there's this big case with Diddy.
Right.
We've read testimony from Don, we've read testimony from Cassie, and a lot of people are confused, right? When you look at what he's being charged with, Rico, sex trafficking, and a lot of people are like, how is this sex trafficking? How is this a Rico? How can you have a Rico case when there's only one defendant? How is it like? I've never heard of a Rico where there aren't other people involved. And sex trafficking, it looks like I don't even understand how this is even sex trafficking if they're in a relationship, and we don't know the answers, right? So what we decided is that we were going to call our lawyer, our good friend, who understands the law and can give us a breakdown to not say whether it's guilty or innocent, but just give where the premise of these charges come from and how they actually make some level of sense.
So before we can even discuss the trial, there has to be an indictment. And we're talking about the federal government. They have nothing but time. So when we talk about sex trafficking, we're talking about racketeering, we're talking about those elements, they have to present a case to the grand jury. And it's not presented, and this is where I think, talking to people presently, they think the case is the beginning and the end with this one witness. Like the first witness is the beginning and the end of the case. And everything is a narrative and everything is storytelling. That's what this is. Just think of it as storytelling, right? if I'm a prosecutor and when I was a prosecutor, state and federal, I wouldn't put my best witness on first because I know I have 13 more to go.
So you telling me that the star witness?
Who determines that that's
The internet, the media.
Right. So
did we ever hear the prosecution say this is a star witness?
And did we read the indictment to see that the indictment talks about traveling and having escorts traveling from different states? We haven't heard any testimony about that. I think, as they say back home, soon come, right? We have talk in the indictment about paying money, extortion. We haven't really heard. We heard a little bit, but not a lot of that. So when you look at this witness, what is this witness saying? Is this witness, why is she part of the story? I'm going to assume, as a prosecutor once was, lays the foundation, gives the jury something to have an understanding of what's going on here. Because quite frankly, unless I misread my playbook as a prosecutor, if that's your best witness and you put them on first, by the time you get to your 14th witness, I forgot about your first witness.
This is true.
So now I got to go through read back 4 or 5 days of read back testimony. And so no prosecutor want that. So what we want to do, we want to build. And you want to be able to come back. And you heard Cassie say this. And you heard Dawn say that. And you heard, and now you're starting to build. Because now you're going to have some people, I would imagine, and my imagination is fairly good, that you're going to have some people that are not women, that are men, that were part of, they call it an enterprise, right? And everybody, ooh, enterprise. No, that's just a name of what you call it, right? Whether it's Combs or whether it's Bad Boy, you know, that either worked or was employed or were consultants or something of that nature that did certain things. It's almost like a puzzle. I don't know if the prosecutor's working in, out, or out, in. I believe they're setting the framework, and then they're going to start putting pieces in the middle, and then it's going to turn into a puzzle. And so that's what we have to look forward to. And so just giving you an understanding of definition of racketeering, because they think it's like gambling, or, you know, maybe we kick down the door and we wave the 4-4. No, it's just 2 or more acts within a 10-year span that are on the list of a variety of acts: drug trafficking, sex trafficking, robbery, murder, extortion, fraud. You commit those, and it's 2 or more, and that's how you get the conspiracy, and you got a trap door.
But the person doesn't have to be on trial with you?
Well, they do and they don't. Sometimes what happens is the government, we call it sliding into first base. Sometimes people decide to slide in first base before the game even starts. They know something is going to happen. They know that they're involved, and either you go to the feds before, or when the feds start interviewing people, because they've interviewed a lot of people, you decide that I was employed to do this. I didn't know it would lead to do that. Or maybe I knew about this, but I didn't know about that. And so I am going to, before I am a co-conspirator named in an indictment, I'm going to become a witness.
So that's basically what's happening is the people that co-conspirate, like actually, because when I'm listening to this is my personal opinion. This is not right or wrong.
Right.
Cassie is a co-conspirator. If you ask me, because when you talking about sex trafficking and you talking about all these escapades they had, and you talking about her getting these, you know, these escorts and all that, she co-conspirated with. There was a lot of times where she initiated it. So if I'm just my as a novice, you know what I'm saying, I'm not a lawyer, but I studied a little law. I was in the law library for 7 years, just studying a little law, just understanding what co-conspirator is. These people are co-conspirators. I'm listening to, they said James Cruz supposed to come up. James Cruz was like his personal assistant. He actually managed a lot of stuff. Right. So more than likely, he was a co-conspirator too. And for exchange for his freedom. I'm following your logic. He's saying, "Listen, I'm gonna go and say whatever y'all need me to say.
Well, not necessarily.
Or I'm gonna say what I know. I'm gonna give my testimony, and just in exchange to make sure that I'm not, because like you said, Maybe he's saying, oh, I was cool with this, but I wasn't cool with that. Or I knew about this and I didn't know that was happening and I wasn't okay with that. So a lot of these people, because that's what a lot of people are saying, how do you have a RICO and a RICO indictment without any co-defendants? And somebody told me, and I'm not saying it's true, they were saying that the only 2 cases that they know that have been like this is him and R. Kelly, where there's been a RICO indictment where no one else has any co-defendants.
Well, look, there is no rule that you have to have co-defendants, all right? Is there implicit bias and some sort of tilting of the scales? There could be. Mm-hmm. There most likely is. I don't think in any genre of the American tale, something wasn't like with a little squint eye, right? Mm-hmm. But you know that coming in. Mm-hmm. Right. You know that after the doctor slap you in the butt, you gonna know that. Like
I'm black.
This is what's happening. So what might be the exception is not an exception for you. It's part of the rule. It might be the exception to someone else. Now, what I will also say to you is that when you have someone that quote unquote you want to label as a co-conspirator, but yet you find so many acts that kind of delves into them being a victim, you got to decide, right?
The jury has to decide.
And the prosecutor has to decide, I got a guy who's 7 feet tall who got a handle like Kyrie Irving, can shoot, dribble, whatever. Am I going to play him as a center or am I going to let him do his thing? And so I'll make the analogy for Cassie, right? I have someone who, may have been involved. And there's a theory to say that maybe she should be at the table. But if I have more data points that says she's more of a victim than anything else, I'm going to use that and go that way. And the same thing with the security guard or security in and of its own. Because remember, for those who don't know, racketeering also includes extortion. Mm-hmm. So if you're employed and your employer is saying, you have to do this, or else you'll be fired, right? Or you never work in this industry again, well, isn't that like extortion? I'm not saying it. I'm not saying he did it or didn't do it. I'm just saying the fact
that's the theory. That's right. And I think that our intention is because it's 8 weeks, so we're only in week 2, and it's at the beginning of week 2.
And can I stop you right there? Mm-hmm. Say that one more time. Yeah. What week?
We're in week 1 in a day. Week 1 in 1 day. So we're in week 2.
So if we got 8 weeks of testimony that's coming down,
we don't know.
Do you think they won or lost this case with one person? That's it.
No,
it ain't over.
I don't think that at all. And I've been saying that, but I'm just saying that because we haven't watched it all play out, and we do know how the justice system is complicit in the violence towards black men and black people. Therefore, we all are going to pay very close attention because people want to point out 6 white women as the prosecutors on this case and different points. So I'm just putting that out there so people are not like, oh, they just putting them in jail. We're not saying that because when people say, well, they have an 80-something% chance of winning, that means there's a 12%, 13%, almost 20% chance of not winning. So you don't know until you get towards the end. I guess probably in week 6, week 7, you as a lawyer and a former prosecutor will probably have a better sense of like where the cake is being baked and how it's coming out. And even though you may have some ideas today, but we're not going to give that because our people ain't ready for that yet. They need a process.
Look, just like a doctor. You come in and you sniffling and you don't have a fever, he's already or she's already doing the diagnosis. Mm-hmm. Already. Mm-hmm. Ain't even take nothing. Are you sneezing? You don't have a fever? Certain things are being eliminated. Bop, 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 bop. Mm-hmm. So now the list gets smaller.
It gets smaller.
What else? You don't eat? You only keep fluids down? The list gets smaller. So as an attorney, respectfully, once I read the indictment and I start seeing what's the A's and the B's, and I don't know about anybody else. I think the reason why I'm good and the reason why I like it, and I think the reason why people that I represent, whether they go do time at the end of the day or whether they go home free, is that we're going to walk this walk. And you better tell me something, because I cannot walk in the room where somebody knows more than I. Because I don't know if you blowing smoke up my nose. I don't know. I need to know.
Let me just ask you this. But this is how sometimes doctors misdiagnose people. right? Because
Correct.
they haven't done the proper testing.
Correct.
They're making a decision based upon the theories of whatever's top of mind. You look like. Next thing you know, I got cancer, but you said it was COVID or some other thing and didn't give me the proper full analysis to make sure of what I actually have. And now I'm in stage 3 and we didn't know because you didn't do that work.
Right. And part of the analogy and the equation that I really want to focus on in that is this, is that I'm only as good as you're going to let me be. Mm-hmm. So if I'm asking you, are you sniffling or do you feel this way? You're like, no. Well, now you're sending me on a path where I can ultimately misdiagnose you. Mm-hmm. So there has to be some give and take in this process of what I'm reading and what's going to go on.
But black people, I think we kind of going off somewhere else, but whatever. But black people have historically been misdiagnosed just because the doctors even care what they're saying.
Well, and this is the great thing. That's why I like doing what I do. That's why I'm glad to see at least one brother on his team, because there has to be conversations. There has to be relatability. There has to be what's smoke, what's not. There has to be trust. There has to be all these things that go on in order for, quote unquote, there to be a fair trial, right? And that's what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So you think he's going to get a fair trial?
I would say yes, he's going to get a fair trial, and I would say no, he will not get a fair trial because one, I have to say yes and no because I know some of the attorneys that's on the staff, they are really good at what they do. And so they're going to stop certain things from happening. But the judge is the ultimate ruler. The judge can say, no, overrule, you have to take it up on appeal. The case is over. An appeal is after you've already been convicted, right? So you might be vindicated, but you served 4 or 5 years. So there's judgment calls that are going to happen that legal minds are going to disagree with. You know, what is enough narrative? You know, how much is overkill? Can you go in this area or not that area? We want to move on with the rest of the case. How do we want to proceed? But then there's going to be parts that some stuff is just going to be stubborn. It's just going to be stubborn evidence. Videos that you saw are stubborn evidence. You can say what you want. That video is saying more than what you could even say verbally. And how can you can't discount the video. But I think for me,
like what most people are saying is you can't discount the video.
Any video, not one particular. I don't know what else is coming through.
I'm just saying based on the video that we've seen.
Okay.
Right, we see domestic violence.
Right.
Right, and that's what most people are 100% clear that, or not clear. Most people will pretty much say that based on what they've seen and based on even testimony, just based off a lot of, you know, what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, that there is a strong possibility that he was abusive to Cassie.
Not a strong possibility.
I mean, on a regular basis. We know this one situation happened, but people would say there's a strong, because we didn't see the other stuff, right? We just make an assessment based on that situation, based on her testimony and based on other testimony and just what we've seen. It is a strong possibility. People say there's is more than likely that he's put his hands on her more than one time.
Off camera,
right?
Okay.
It was off camera that day.
Right. But for
I mean,
it's surveillance. But no, I'm just trying to make the point that was off camera. Nobody was standing there with the thing filming him. So he was off camera.
I'm just saying that we visually didn't see.
I get it.
So what I'm saying is, and most people are 100% clear, and they believe that there should be some repercussions for what he did, whatever the minimum. But I think what people are having a hard time wrapping their heads around, most people, more often, not most people, some people, because I won't say most, there are people that have a very hard time with sex trafficking. In the Rico, they just when you see that.
But let me just say one thing: they're having a hard time because they haven't seen anything yet.
Oh, okay. But I'm just saying.
But you're having a hard time. People may be having a hard time with something that they haven't. They want the dessert. You got to have dinner. They got to take human bites, right? As the bites start to come, pro or con, then you can start to say, I don't think they proved this, that, and the other.
Like you can't say it hasn't been proven yet because they haven't even played out their case.
They haven't done. They laid the foundation. I'm going to assume.
Once again, the foundation.
I'm going to assume.
We're not there. We
right?
don't know. Mm-hmm.
They just laid the foundation. Royce Russell, prosecutor, will not put his best witness on. Will put a witness on that lays the foundation. Not a witness that people will fall asleep, but people are interested, and that lays the foundation. Mm-hmm. If you think that the case is over in this one witness, then you're right. You have all those conclusions. They didn't do this. They didn't say anything about sex trafficking. No, she's one witness that said one thing, right? And that's the way the feds like to work. They like to work in very didactical, piece by piece. They'll have you come in 20 times and to ask you that same question over, not just to see whether or not you're telling the truth. It's because they went and asked somebody else some other questions, and that person said A, B, and C. So they're coming back to you. All right, we're going to talk about A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, and then you might slip in a C. And then now they got 2 C's. All right, so now that person was telling the truth, and now I got you telling the truth. Now I can build on that. It's a puzzle for them. It is not straight rush the prosecution. Now, as you were giving out numbers, 80%, 95%, you know, the numbers are very high. You know, I practice in federal court, and
you won most of your cases?
Folks do take, no. I can sit here and tell you no, not in federal court. No.
State,
when
you was a prosecutor?
Those are totally
different. Let me ask you,
which one? As a
prosecutor?
Oh, as a prosecutor, I was fantabulous. I mean, you know, as a prosecutor.
At federal court, you won most of your cases.
Because here's the storyline with that. People are not used to seeing people of color operate the way I operate, right? And so there's a somewhat of a little bit of a bottom line that I want to believe you just on how you operated. And then you got the facts to corroborate, look, I'm telling you the truth. You need to listen to me. And the way we worked in the federal government, we got 16, 17 people. All I got to do is just try this case. Anything that's appealable, anything that comes up, I got an appellate person sitting there writing the notes. All right, we're going to get that. When you're a defense counsel and you're there, you don't have the flock of 30 people.
So why did you leave and do, and so if you were having such success as a prosecutor, why, look, I'm in your personal business.
No, I mean, it's
why did you go and get in the hard work of being a criminal defense attorney? Because sometimes you be a little stressed out.
Oh, no, not sometimes. And it's not necessarily what happens in the court, what's happening out of the court. Trying to talk to someone and say, look, you need to see it the way I'm seeing it because I saw what's behind curtain number 1. I took a peek. And what you're saying to me is not relating to taking that peek. Now, we could do whatever you want, and I'm your main man. We can go 100 grand. But there's going to come a time that door is going to open, and there's a good possibility I may go left and you may have to go right on the federal level because that's just how tight it is. That's how they just have the people that you think, you know, numerous times on the state level as a defense counsel, my clients would say, oh, that person's not showing up. And they, right. I've never been on a case, in a federal case, where somebody said they're not showing up. Everybody shows up.
Well, they said they lost a third witness I'm just saying, they couldn't find them. Yeah, so these are things things can happen.
Things could happen, and it ain't over. You can't.
Right.
I represented people where, like, look, I'm getting a call because they're going to arrest you, and you're going to be in the pokey until you come around.
Yep.
Now, we're going to take your name off the witness list for today. We're going to bring you, and you're going to be on the next Thursday. And in between that time, there may be conversations in hearings where the judge will hold you in contempt, and you go behind.
Jesus. You don't want to be in trouble in the feds, basically.
You go behind bars a little bit. And you better hope that they don't hit you with 1001. I'm getting real technical, which is obstructing a federal investigation. Now you got to think about that. And you didn't sign up for that.
Nope.
No way did you sign up for that.
Nope.
You just went downstairs and got 6 coffees because the man told you to go downstairs to get 6 coffees. That's how wide a conspiracy could be.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Right? I've had a case where the woman was on the phone. She said, oh, yeah, baby, I'll meet you at the spot. The spot turned out to be the drug spot. It wasn't. She didn't mean the drug spot. She was talking about, I'll meet you at the club. I'll meet you later on. They heard spot. Next thing you know, she's wrapped in a conspiracy. I'm like, now you got to do the culturalization. You got to do the understanding.
And then you got to hope that she doesn't actually know about the drug spot. Because that's the key. They probably already know you not talking about the drug spot. But they know you know about the drug spot. So even if you wasn't talking about it in that conversation, they're going to use you and say, listen, we think you was talking about the spot, and if not, we're going to get you this and that, and you need to tell us something. Well, I wasn't talking. All right, well, listen, I do know about such and such, and he know about the spot, and I seen him go to, and that's how they do
compromise.
It. And they compromise.
You compromise.
So the RICO does not need more than one defendant.
No.
It needs more than one.
I mean,
you don't have to charge. You don't have to put them on the indictment.
You don't have
You have to prove it.
Prove that they were involved. They were engaged.
Right.
So there's nobody. No one else has to be sitting next to
a
defendant.
Do not.
Okay, so that's one. Now let's talk about sex trafficking. Because that's very. I mean, I'm even very not confused because I went and got myself very much so caught up to speed. Mm-hmm. But especially when you have children, and we work with black folks all the time, and I'm hearing sex trafficking more and more. Now, I used to only see sex trafficking as the white van.
Grabbing you,
grab
you
the
inside,
person, kidnap
you in the hotel,
take
drugs,
you, or even,
right?
and I think I did get the point of sort of coercion that turns into I'm unable to leave, right? Like at first I was kind of just hanging out with you, and then the next thing you know, the door was locked or the thing happened, I'm drugged or whatever, and now I can't leave, and now you moved me somewhere or you took me over here. So I kind of get that concept. But what I think, again, where people struggle in this particular case, where people struggle in this particular case is the idea that somebody is a willing participant, even an escort, who is a willing participant. They got the call, you found them in the magazine or wherever, on the street, in the strip club, whatever. And they said, oh yeah, I'll go out with you. And then you pay them. They know that sex is an expectation. And then you say, but I want, a matter of fact, we might have did it in Kentucky when I met you that day. But now you're so good at what you do, I'm going to fly you to Miami, or I'm going to bring you over here, or I want you to meet me in Jersey from New York. That's where it gets to be and I think it's important, Puff, that's one thing. Let's put that over here. I'm just saying that there's some young cats that flew the girl out all the time. Flying this one over here, they meet, and particularly strippers, which I was reading something the other day, and I said, whoa. The stripper thing is really serious because you met them in an environment and they're not your girlfriend that you flew out. Like, this is somebody that you now are giving money to see them again, and then sex happens. And a lot of these young guys, I see them on social media like, what? Sex trafficking. So I just wanted for you to talk a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, it is very, very nuanced, right? Because the definition can be played with in how you view it, right? I would say that there's a lot of things that we do that are criminal, but you never get charged for. Every time you jaywalk, that's a crime. Mm-hmm. But nobody ever gets a ticket for it. That doesn't mean it wasn't a crime. Mm-hmm. Right?
Spitting on the street is a crime. I never knew that.
That's right.
You now they start giving people tickets for it.
Now you're looking. So you're in a strip club, you're giving money, you're doing that, and people say, well, how's that any different? How's that any different? Well, when the federal government gets involved and you flying people and you driving people, that's the nuance, right? The federal government said, y'all can do what you want in the state, but if we want to do something, we're just going to look at how you travel, because we got the underlying act. How do we get in our jurisdiction? Oh, you jumped on 87? Oh, you took 95? Oh, you went from Newark? You flew? All that is us. Mm-hmm. And if they want you, then that's where they come in. Now, what I will tell you is that what I hear all the time from family, friends, and foes is that, consensual, all this stuff is consensual. And I hearken them back to read The Miseducation of the Negro. If I control your thinking, I don't have to worry about your actions. And if you just take that right there and think about this case, if I control your thinking, I ain't got to worry about your actions. So that means back in slavery, if I control your thinking, I ain't got to worry about you running out the back door to try to leave. run
So
away
basically,
free.
they're just trying to say.
I'm not saying
Basically,
what they're
what
saying.
they're trying to create.
What I'm
You
saying
saying
is what
what's
we
in
say.
it, right.
What we saying. What
Right.
we saying is that if I control your thinking, I ain't got to worry about your action. So why didn't she leave? Did I control her thinking? I ain't got to worry about her leaving. Why didn't he tell? Did I control his thinking? I ain't got to worry about him telling. Now, how do you control one's thinking? Low self-esteem, give you some money. However you do it, you do it.
But people think if I'm buying you gifts, right? If a person is buying you gifts, then that means that you want the lifestyle, you want the things, you want whatever, the job that I can offer you, right? You are putting yourself in a situation where you know that I'm X amount of problematic things, but because you're trying to get to a means, then the ends justify it. And I'm not saying I agree with that at all.
But it's a dynamic, right? It's like women say, I want to deal with a powerful man. I like power. I'm intrigued by power. A man can lead. I want to live the soft life. I want a man that can control, that could tell me, hey, you shut up and you listen to me. And you aspire to get a man like that, right? So there are men out here that I've had conversations with men that said, we're actually punishing a man because he got good game now and he's powerful. And we're saying that a woman who succeeds to that power, right, becomes susceptible to that power and allows you to utilize that power and gains from that power, takes the money, enjoys all of the accolades that come with that power. The minute that she no longer wants to succeed, so become susceptible to that, it becomes a crime.
Well, see, nobody's going to accept that as anywhere near what they would teach their loved ones, because you have societal norms. And societal norms is, even though I like a man that's powerful or I like a woman that's powerful, I don't want them choking me out.
Oh no, we're not talking about the physical part of
right?
that.
So,
Yeah, because this it gets
I don't
mixes.
want. Right? Yeah, I don't want.
But that's the problem. You can't make a straight vegan cake without mixing something in it. You gotta the cake gotta have some weight, have some substance in it.
Yeah.
It may not have any flour, but it's gonna have some assimilation of flour. It's gonna have something. So you can't talk about anything in isolation because it's all commingled. Nothing can be talked about in isolation. And I think, for the most part, we may speak in isolation. Like, oh, well, she wanted, whoever she may be, or he wanted a powerful woman. All right, he did. To what degree? That's where the nuances come in. They come in what degree? What degree are we talking about? Is it this much? Or is it this much? And that's where societal norms come in. Is it this much or is it this much? And that's what a jury will decide.
And that's when a jury will decide.
Yeah.
I've been saying
it's gonna be rough. It's rough on both ends because I don't think no man, woman, or anybody of good conscience looked at him beating Cassie and says that was okay. I just don't think there's nobody that's saying, nah, she deserved. Everybody's saying whatever he deserved for beating that woman, he needs to get it. But I also think that there are a lot of people that's saying, when you look at the dynamic of, they were in a toxic relationship. A lot of people saying this is a toxic relationship. And a lot of people have been in toxic relationships.
Correct.
And when you look at over a 10-year span, you look at text messages, you look at communication they have, there was levels of love there. There was communication. There was her dictating a lot of stuff. It was time that they actually showed where she was like, oh, I want to do this freedom. He's like, nah, you should just relax. You should go home. You got a movie deal. You got all these things. Relax. We don't got to do that. We need to calm down. There were times where you can just see that there was love in this situation. And what this trial is portraying is that there was this manipulative, evil man that just controlled this woman, and she had no right. She had no power over herself.
Yeah, I think
that's the dynamic that a lot of people are struggling with.
And they can struggle. I mean, I'm not going to say that they shouldn't, but what I'm saying is that you mentioned is an 8-week trial. We on week and 1 day, and that the case, she's not being tried for what he did to Cassie, and all be all. That's not the case. That would be a short case. We got 8 weeks of other stuff that, quite frankly, I hope our community pays attention to one way or the other. That's
what I'm saying.
Because that's the real nitty gritty. That's not, like I said, the first one is the real.
It's to pay attention.
And I like, keep the main thing the main thing.
That's right.
Look at the other look at, well, how many more receipts we going to see of somebody flying somewhere in and out. After a while, you're going to get tired of seeing receipts. How many times we going to hear? And that's the guts, whether they can prove or not prove. That's the guts.
Right. And
we seeing frosting. That's the guts.
I also would say that, you know, I've heard a lot of people. First of all, I want to name something that I think is important that has come up in the Shannon Sharpe situation as well.
Right.
Power dynamics are very, very, very important.
We see it in corporate America all day, every day.
And that's why you can't sleep with and mix with people on your staff that are certain
I can't
age.
joke with. There's no, you look good, you look nice today, because I don't know how you perceive that. If I'm the boss and you're the subordinate, or you're my, you got to just do the job.
It is very important that people take away the main things from this trial and like I said, the Shannon Sharpe situation, that you have to be very careful when you have power and money about how you operate with people who have less than you. With all people. But with people who have less than you, there's always going to be a view that you were in control because you had the ability to move and maneuver things that another person did, or that other person did not have the ability to do. So if I begin having a relationship with some, you know, younger employee of mine, or a younger, you know, my trainer or something like that, knowing the position that I'm in life, and then all of a sudden he begins to be uncomfortable, I expose myself, because I should never have been operating in that type of, I want to say, power dynamic in the first place.
But if you think about it, Cassie is married to her trainer.
Yeah, but I'm not.
When we having these conversations, there's a power dynamic in every situation, right? There's a power dynamic, and I'm not, and I just want you to understand that we having these conversations, and there was a whole thing, and I'm not bringing up any names, but there was a whole thing where they showed the dynamics of black men in power dynamics and white men in power dynamics. And most of the white men in the same positions who have done way more, there's no direct attack to completely dismantle them.
But,
this is just a reality, and this is a real thing that we talking about. We could go from Bill Cosby, Michael Jackson, Shannon. We can look at every powerful man and that was black. There was a complete attack by the media and everything to completely crush their whole appearance. There are white men who have been charged with the same thing. Robert Kraft and them got caught doing some sexual shit. That shit disappeared within a week. They talked about it one day, it completely disappeared. We never heard about Hugh Hefner getting. We never heard the people who actually did the power dynamics of this real shit, where it started from, that we started a lot of, not we, that black men started to mimic. These people would never, their image and everything was never completely shattered. It never happened. So we can say that there's a power. We gotta say the thing is the thing, that black men in power have to be way more careful than every other man in power.
And I'm saying that I want the system to be just, and I want us to do just things. I'm saying that just because there is this issue where we know we as black people in general, not just black men, face discrimination, and what is the word, that the rules do not always apply, or the rules always apply for us and don't always apply for other people. Just because all of that is true does not make me incapable of also seeing fault when fault is present in black men. So in fact, I am very cautious about even saying that in the midst of a black man facing accountability for their actions. I'm very careful to not allow myself to say, well, what about the house that's burning down the street? because this house is burning
But I don't
right
think
here.
that we're saying what
Well,
about.
I'm
I
not
think that
saying
we're
I'm not my son.
acknowledging it.
I am not saying you are. I'm saying I know what the conversations that I've been having with people, not just about Puff, because people know not to really talk to me about Puff, because as I've already said, I understand that we all are walking contradictions. When you love people, it is harder, especially me never seeing Puff do any of these things, right? Like, I don't know him as this person. I know him as the person who was always kind, supportive of me, helpful, fun, funny, but still very respectful of me. But I also know that I'm a very privileged individual, that certain people are not going to do and say certain things to me. And so I have to listen to other people's experiences and see how it all plays out, right? So what I'm saying is that people don't really talk to me about that, because when they start, I'm like, look, I don't even want to talk about it. But there are other scenarios where I have had black men say to me, oh, well, such and such beat so-and-so, the white man did it, or the so-and-so did it, and now all of a sudden, because I did it, or because my brother or my cousin did it, now this means that it's unfair. Well, first of all, we live in unfair reality. And if we know that, then we already know, because we say things all the time. As a black person, I know better. I'm not doing this. I'm not going running through a community, you you tell your kids, don't you go running through them people neighborhood at night, because you know what can happen to you.
But that's all basically, that's exactly what I was saying. We are black. So when you say as men, there's a power dynamic, it's not as men. It's not, when we look at it in totality, it's not the rules do not apply to all men the way that they apply to black men. And that's all I'm trying to say.
Right.
And I'm not saying this, right, when we talk about physical abuse and all that, I'm talking about the power dynamic. When we look at the power dynamic, black men are scrutinized way more in these power dynamics. We got Cuomo who's accused, now he's running for mayor tomorrow. We got all these things just disappear. It don't disappear for black men. T.I. went through whatever he went through. They said this didn't happen. Nobody said sorry. Nobody gives a fuck. So these are realities that black men deal with all the time. They diminish you. They take all the shit. You take all the charges. And even if you find guilty, you can't. If you found not guilty, they never rebuild you. There's never no recourse. There's nothing back. Nobody's getting charged or anything. None of that happens for black men. And that's just the reality that we have to deal with. So I acknowledge that we have to be way more cautious. But we can't make it seem like the playing field is evil even for black men like it is for everybody else.
But that's the story that we're born into that, right? We know that, right? And so I think where some folks get misled is that they buy into that it's not going to happen to me.
Yep.
And once you lift up the shade a little bit and you think it's not going to happen to you, that's when it happens to you. That's just how it happens. Period. And whether right or wrong, Shannon Sharp or not, whomever, if you think that you are not on the eye of the tiger, you wrong. You should act as if someone's always looking at you and looking for you, period. Men and women, period. That's it. And if they got to find something and they're going to contrite, our community is more than happy to be behind you when there's something that's contrite, that you just trying to find something. But when something has some meat on the bone, you got a problem. And that's irrespective of this case right here.
So we talked about nuance today, that all these things, because you had said earlier, my son, that Rico charges are designed for you not to be able to beat him.
Yeah, they was pretty
much.
much.
Would you agree with that?
I would agree. I would agree. So let me say, I agree in the sentiment. I don't necessarily agree with the words. Right? Rico speaks to conspiracy and two or more and a whole litany of crimes that you can commit. And can you beat it? If you act by yourself, but if there's other people that are around you that acting, everybody has a soft spot. You can get in a situation that has nothing to do with this case and decide that this is the best thing that's got me going.
Exactly.
I mean, that's just the reality. That's just so.
And we could look at situations like Brian Benjamin. Like when they start coming with you, Rico, They don't most of the time it don't have nothing to do with nothing. It don't. And they got one person, like he said, it got nothing to do with this case, but he was arrested for something else. And he said, well, I might have done this, or he might have said this to me. And next thing you know, but I'm just trying to tell you that we just judge a little different. This is my personal opinion.
Definitely judge. No, I can tell you as a defense counsel walking in and as a prosecutor, we're definitely judged a whole lot different. Mm-hmm. But I can't accept that from you as a defendant that you didn't understand that part about America. Mm-hmm. Like that's the part that we're gonna rock out. We're gonna scramble.
But a lot of times
you gotta understand that.
But that's what the power dynamic does, right? When you look at powerful men that's been powerful for 30 years, and you hanging around these rich white men, and they doing the same shit, and you forget. You start thinking, oh, we on the same level. They doing it. This is okay.
And it just seems like you could do, like you said, you commit crimes every day because I know that there are people who got caught up in these types of cases, didn't even know at all. They really, truly did not understand that they were involved with or helping to further. Because I kept reading that.
That's right.
Helping to further.
So the further is, you went and picked somebody up from the airport.
Dang.
Or you thought it was like, he told me to go pick up somebody. Yeah. Or she.
But if he mentions to you on the way out the car, I'm about to go smoke this thing or do this thing or whatever, then does that. I still don't understand how, if I picked you up and took you to the airport or from there or whatever the hell, how do I become a part of something where you did not explicitly say to me, I'm getting ready to go buy these drugs?
Hey, federal government has a burden of proof.
Yep, and they can present it.
It's the words called inference.
Yep.
How can you be involved with all this and not infer and know what's going on? Like you didn't know, like you were picking up, that wasn't a famous singer you picked up from the airport. Like you do know that, right? And you bring them, idle conversation happens. Everybody, when they get in the car, they not talk happens. Things happen. Go downstairs now.
Or can you take me, matter of fact, man, take me by this spot, my
Before
man, I know to whatever. Yo, that's a lot though. That's not really fair.
It's not, and it's not designed to be fair. That's what I'm trying to tell
really
you.
Fair.
It's not fair, but we scoop.
Because I didn't do the crack when I went by to go get the crack. I mean, I took you over there. I don't know what the hell. You a grown ass person. You going there to get the crack. What does this have to do with my life?
And maybe that's why you're not charged. But,
because I'm with the law.
But no, maybe that's why.
I'm just telling you.
Maybe that's why you're not charged. Because,
but you a witness.
Because you know that I just did this. But if you get, and this is where we started at, the piece of the puzzle. I just did this. I just did this. I just did. Now you start to build a framework. And then you get a couple of more people. They just did this. They just did that. They just did that. That's what it's all about.
We can go on and on about this forever. I'm going to ask one more question, right? Because we got this Megan Tory Lanez thing that I was talking about.
Okay, wait. Before you get to your last question, here's two things that also have this case has highlighted. People under NDAs, because there was a woman who testified that she signed an NDA that Cassie gave her after she was assaulted by Puff. And he supposedly paid her. That's what she said. But she was under the NDA because she signed it. She said that. So people want to know, how did she end up in court? And then the biggest thing is folks are saying Cassie took a settlement from Puff. So how does she now become a witness in this case?
Because you're talking about criminality. Civil and criminal are two different worlds. And the federal government and the U.S. Attorney's Office, they do not care about what's going on in the civil world. Matter of fact, when you look at separation agreements, when you leave your job, right, things are not working out, they give you a separation agreement. It will talk about, you can't talk about the settlement. You can't disclose why you left. You can't disparage. You can't do any of those things. But there's always that one paragraph. There's always that one paragraph that speaks to. Wait, hold on. I'm sorry.
Put the phone back. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Now, where you want me to start?
No, go ahead.
All right. Mm-hmm. It's always that one paragraph that speaks to that if there's a federal investigation, if there's a state investigation, if there's an EEOC investigation,
All bets are
off. The only thing you will see in reference to that is that you got to let us know. The employer says you got to let us know. We can't intercede. We can't talk to you first, but you got to let us know. Same thing here. You can have all. Let's just say she breached the NDA and everybody's up in arms, and she happens to breach the NDA that you drafted and signed. And let's say you're acquitted. Let's just say. Where you think you're going to sue her for breaching the NDA? What court you think you're going to go to? I say it, I say it very, lightly. What court you going to go to?
None. You can't go to the
feds. No judge is going to say, you know what? You're right. $50,000 you win because she breached the NDA because the federal government came to her and said, we want to know about criminality. You have nowhere to go.
Nowhere.
So once again,
don't do it, because just don't do the thing.
Well, just don't do the thing.
There we go. Just don't do the thing.
Just don't do the thing. Just don't do the thing.
So what I wanted to ask as our final question is, so there's been a lot of talk about this Meg and Tory Lanez,
right,
quote unquote, newly discovered evidence. So what they're saying is that a driver who was driving her to court,
who is her,
who was driving Kelsey to court, who is Meg's friend, who was driving her to court back and forth for the 2 days that she went to trial, overheard her saying that, quote, I don't know the exact words, that she's the one who shot Meg and that he blocked the gun out of her hand. Is this newly discovered evidence, or is it hearsay? Can it be presented as newly discovered evidence, or is it just hearsay evidence?
Well, it's both, and there's always a hearsay exception. So things are allowed because you have a rule and you have an exception. If someone is making a statement that is involving an investigation or involving prior testimony, and you know it, then it's new evidence.
Okay.
The issue is how relevant is it? How relevant is it to the bigger piece, and whether or not and how it can be used? So that's really the question, because there's always exceptions to every rule. So is it hearsay? Yeah, it's an out-of-court statement. Definitely is, right? But what's the exception? And was it against her own interest in making the statement? Whether or not it was in furtherance of some other interest, that'll determine whether or not it can come in.
Got it.
So and who makes that decision? A judge? A judge.
The prosecutor either say argue for or against it. Defense will either argue for or against it.
And
the judge will make a decision.
And this was the same judge that was on the case that would make that decision, or a new judge could be?
It all depends. It all depends. That is not a fast rule. It all depends. Because sometimes what happens in federal court, in most courts, you have judges that'll deal with all the logistical motions and all the suppressions and all those hearings, and then you have the judge that just tries the case.
But now, in this particular situation, I think Kelsey did pled the fifth, or
she was granted immunity, actually.
Right, she was granted immunity.
So
they can bring the new evidence against her, and then the courts can decide again, because people need to know that all these things, the NDA, the immunity,
whether or not it violates any immunity clause, and then they make that decision.
And so they could, because I think people believe if I have immunity, or if I signed an NDA or whatever, then I'm out of it. And what we're hearing here is that that's not the case.
So I think the best way to describe it is immunity is usually for criminal conduct. Like, look, I'm immune from anything that goes on because you deem my information so valuable. NDA is for the civil context. Never should they meet. And if they meet, criminal's always going to take over.
So the criminal in this situation, even though she had immunity from a criminal act.
Yes. It's still...
If new evidence means it's a new ball game.
It's a new situation.
Okay.
Because you don't have immunity forever.
That means that she lied under oath.
Right.
But you don't get free. The person who was convicted, do they get free
It depends. It depends.
It depends on all the stuff.
On the relevance of it.
Of the evidence.
Right? So it might be a small factor that wouldn't have changed the juror's perspective. So it's called, this is what they call it harmless error. It was an error, but it was harmless. Now, I would tell you, if I'm behind bars, ain't nothing harmless. It's an error.
Yeah,
Let's get it. Let's do a do-over. But the courts will look at all the factors, look at all the evidence, and say this was harmless error.
So in the history of your life, which, by the way, whatever, we can't say because people do crazy things. What is the likelihood from your perspective that a woman who got immunity, playing all kinds of games on the stand, I followed this case very closely.
Yeah.
I went to the trial. Definitely it appears there was some money exchange. When they asked her who paid for her lawyers, she don't know. All of that, all of these things. What is the likelihood that she would get in the car with a driver who she does not know? Not a driver who she's known for years and years. Driver she doesn't know, in a couple of days back and forth to court, and just sit there on the phone telling people, yeah, I'm the one who shot the girl.
So what was the question? Was the likelihood that she would say something
Yeah,
like
that she would just
Or
be having
that would be something that a judge would look at and say, oh, this is...
Oh, the judge
can look at it.
The judge is going to look at it because
Right.
somebody's going to bring it to the judge's table.
Right.
Now, what is the That's a hard question to answer. People are stupid.
Right, they are.
People
They are.
stupid,
I swear
right?
they are.
People are stupid, right?
Yeah.
I mean, with all due respect, people are just stupid. And so, would that be the first thing that we saw a stupid person do? No, that's why we call them stupid. So now, from the perspective of the driver, this is what I look at if I'm a judge. Why would you contrive a story and put yourself in a case that you never in a case before?
Well, but he said it's because he feels bad.
Why would you make up a story? The reason why you come forward is because you feel bad.
You feel bad.
Why you would make up something that's not true, that's a whole nother story. So the judge has to say, is this person making that up? Or did this happen and they're coming forward because of what you said?
So you got to look at all of the dynamics.
You gotta look at
And I
everything.
think
You got to
they
look at
should.
where the driver come from.
You gotta look at
who
everything.
hired the
You gotta look
driver.
at
Where did he
everything.
come
You gotta look
from?
at everything.
Communication.
But I'm for. I always say, and it's the same thing that I say about the situation with Pug. As much as I love him, I believe that he has to face these charges, right? Like he has to. You can't just be like, well, I love somebody or I believe such and such, so let's just brush it. No, it don't work like that. If there are women who are saying, or men saying they've been abused, I believe everybody deserves their day in court. People look at me, they're like, oh, how do you feel? I feel that if these things that people are saying, these things happen to them, I would never try to block him from having to go to court to deal with the allegations against him. I think everybody deserves, every woman, every man, every person who has who has a story of being abused or being harmed in some way, they deserve their day in court. And that's just where I am with it. Some people will say, throw it out. No, I don't believe in that. So I think that if Kelsey, if this is what's coming up, I want them to go down the rabbit hole. Because I think it's better for people to be able to see it all play out than if it feels like nothing happened and a black man was just railroaded.
I understand that. I mean, that's why we have jurors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why everybody has the right to confront their witnesses.
Yeah.
It's called the confrontation clause. You have a right to confront. And what comes out, comes out.
Well, that was great. It's a long interview that will have to be edited. Poor Janice. But I think we did talk about some important things. And I just know that, I be trying to follow the law. I ain't saying that I get things right all the time. And I'm not talking about from a law perspective. I'm just saying in life, we all have issues. But the law, the rules, I be trying my best to stay within them unless I'm breaking them on behalf of our people. And other than that, I don't.
And that's a whole nother dynamic, right? You're just talking about black on black on black on black. And you got white jurors there, and they're just like, this is what y'all do?
Yeah.
Right.
And there's no empathy or sympathy. That's what y'all do?
Yeah.
I'm here
That's
judging
why
y'all.
black
That's what y'all do? And I tell people this all the time. Look, if we were empowered and everything was black, we would still have the same dynamics that exist. There'll be lesser blacks in a pool of blacks,
Mm-hmm.
and there'll be underprivileged blacks in a pool of blacks, and you still have the dynamic that you have. I would love to be in that world, but you're still gonna have the same classism and the dynamics that you have. Once classism comes into play, people have different interests. That's it. It's off. That's why only the best revolutions was the one where you eat, I eat, we all didn't eat. Let's
We
go
all
get
got the
something to
same.
eat.
Yeah, that's right.
As soon as you get a piece of slice of bread,
He's like, man, I ain't going out there.
Thank you so much. Attorney Royce Russell, thanks for joining us. Thank you for being on the TMI show
guy.
today. And just thank you for being you.
always. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Royce gave us a lot of good feedback about how we see,
did.
because there's a lot, like I've said, there's a lot of different questions about Puffy's case and, how the Rico thing is working, how the sex trafficking thing works. And
Thing.
Thing.
It's not a thing.
It is a thing.
It's not. It's really not. It's
Sex
not.
trafficking is not a thing.
It's not. No, it's not the sex trafficking thing. I think we have to be very mindful and careful. And
What I'm talking about,
sex trafficking charges, how Rico charges and sex trafficking charges, not the thing, sir.
What?
No? Okay, forget it. I'm wrong then.
I just don't understand. Like, we know that they're charges. I'm saying the sex trafficking thing. The thing that it is sex trafficking, and those happen to be charges. We just got to make it this particular thing.
No, it's not that. It's just that I think we have to be mindful that the level of seriousness that we apply to it when speaking is the level of seriousness that I think our people will understand how they can be incriminating themselves. So that's the reason why I said it. But the thing is fine. It's just that I get a sense from some of our folks that, to Royce's point, it won't happen to me, or I can dibble and dabble a little bit. And to your point, our young men need to really, really be mindful, and women need to really be mindful that a little something could turn into a big something and you be messed up for a long time.
It's very, very troubling. When you look at the implications, when you look at the reality of what we're dealing with in just the justice system, or injustice. Black men just see it as an injustice system, and it's not saying that this situation is injustice, because a man should be held accountable for everything he does. But we just know, like you said, when white people get 20 years, we're going to get 200 years. So this is just the reality. So that's what I'm saying. We have to be mindful of exactly what's going on. We have to understand that the legal system was never meant to show us justice or fairness. And then we also have to understand that you're going to be held accountable for the things that you do.
Well, yeah. And I think there are people out here that would argue, Mice, that when you say that, it gives people a way to argue about something other than the situation. Which I get your point, is that that's a part of the situation.
Well,
right?
Well, we have to look at the situation, because I wasn't aware.
I'm not trying to say Puff or Cassie or this person or that person, because there's so many different people with arguments and thoughts and whatever. I'm just saying that I find whenever we are able to say, well, the black man isn't treated fairly in the system, I notice that a lot of people are saying that and using it as an excuse.
I wouldn't say it's an excuse. It's just a reality. And that doesn't take away that if you do a crime, and you should be held accountable for the crime you do. But we can't ignore the fact that when we talk about a Rico charge, and even though Royce said, well, they never said that it had to be other people involved in Rico charge, we can't ignore the fact that the only times those things didn't happen, that there weren't other co-defendants, that it was two black men.
Yeah, I just went.
We can't ignore that, though. But that's a fact.
But you didn't say that when you asked Royce. You said, I'm not 100% sure, but this is what I heard. And if that is true,
and
it's
when
crazy.
He
never agreed with you or not, because we don't know. We don't know. And what happens is that becomes, if it is not true, right?
And if it is not true, then we'll correct it.
No, but the problem is that people never stick around for a correction. They never hear that. So when we state things like that we don't necessarily know if it's true or not, it becomes a part of misinformation. No, you just started saying it's a fact.
No, I said we can't ignore it. Okay, so let me change the verbiage. We can't ignore it, that if that is true, right? Because that's why most of us who've been in the legal system who are just as impacted, we're confused because I have yet to see any other RICO charge where there weren't co-defendants.
First of all, I think that I agree with that I usually see a bunch of people that are involved, at least more than 2 people. But I would always caution us, because what we're really saying is we haven't seen it in high-profile cases, because none of us know about every case from people who lived from Utah to Alabama to nobody knows that. And so you can't say what has only happened to R. Kelly and Puff when we don't know, right? Perhaps from a high-profile perspective, that may be the case. We don't know. But I think it's very dangerous because what happens is that becomes people's excuse instead of addressing the actual issues at hand. I don't think
nobody is not addressing or afraid or ignoring the issues at hand. If someone did something wrong, they should be held accountable. But nobody should ignore that based on the knowledge that we have, that I've had. And I've seen many people. I got friends that's been locked up for RICOs. I know strangers that have been locked up for RICOs. I have never seen anybody outside of those, because I wasn't even thinking about the R. Kelly case when it was actually said until Shabazz brought it up. I got the information from Shabazz. I don't know. I didn't actually double check it, but I heard him say it, and he said it confidently. So if I'm wrong or if he's wrong, then we'll correct it. But I know this for a fact. I've never seen a federal RICO case where there was only one defendant outside of those 2 situations. And I didn't even realize that they had charged R. Kelly with the federal RICO charge. I just never seen it before. You know what I'm saying? That was something I've never seen before. So just saying it, it's like, damn, that's really strange. But like Roy said, even though that is something that we haven't seen, there's no criteria to say that it can't happen.
Right, because the criminal enterprise is the fact that multiple people participated in. I told you, I read this. That's why I kept saying I was arguing with different people, because I went to go read all of it so that I could understand from various perspectives what's happening and what am I seeing. And what I kept reading was people who help further. So further means that you assisted me in doing this thing. It does not mean that you were the particular entity or subject of it, but you help further it. So I guess what we're hearing from Royce is that as long as those people have something that corroborates or provides evidence that you were using and bringing different people into this criminal activity, then that somehow that makes their case. So that, for me, again, putting this particular legal matter to the side, but just sitting and focused on how we live every single day. He's saying you picking up people, you taking them over here. They might mention this and that. And we live our lives, some of us, we all live our lives free in that. You know what I'm saying? So you got your cousin or your homie that you know he be into stuff all the time, but now you got him in your car. And you taking them XYZ place, you a female, you know, who your boyfriend or whatever, you know, stuff is a little weird. You ain't sure exactly how he's living. And then you moving him around, you letting him drive your car. You're doing nothing. You're innocently participating in a RICO.
And that's what I'm trying to do.
That's serious.
And that's why I said the RICO charge was designed for you not to be able to beat it. It was first initiated to rich mafia bosses. That's how they put them under the statute, because a lot of people didn't want to tell, and people. So they figured out a way that we can make sure that it's no way that you're not guilty of something. The fact that you know this person, and if we have an inkling that you know him and you was aware that he was ever committed criminal acts and you still continue to deal with him and you did anything, we could connect you to that. And that's how they usually created the RICO. What they did was, even when you look at Young Thug's case, right? Gunna, they never charged Gunna with anything but just being in the car. And they made him utilize his voice to say that it was a criminal, that YSL was a criminal enterprise. Even though they didn't even say he did a crime. He was just in the car. So this is what I'm trying to say. It's not designed for you to win. It's designed for everybody that's connected to you to feel like, damn, I have to say something even if I ain't got nothing to do with it, I have to corroborate their story to make it look like there's a crime, even if it's not a crime. And it's unfortunate because you got a bunch of people on your indictment that you don't even know. They got indictments and Rico charges, people you never seen, and you're connected to that person through another person who made a phone call to another person, and all these people happen to be your co-defendants. And when they say that they did something, they come back and say, yo, you need to cop out because these people said this, and they're connected to you. And the average person is like, yo, how the fuck do I beat this? You start looking at the criterias, and you start looking at what they saying you did, and then saying, well, it's saying even if you didn't know and this and that and that and that, you're still liable. It's like, what the fuck? It's an abyss. It is a fucking you can't get to the bottom of it. I'm telling you, there are very few people, like you said, there are 1 or 2% people that actually beat a federal RICO, because most people look at that shit and say, it's no way I can win. So what happens is people cop out because they like, yo, I know this person, and I probably knew he was locked up before, but I didn't think we was going to do this. My man was sitting in jail for a RICO charge in a room because the dude said he walked by the room, and he seen him sitting there, right? And somebody else said that they was going to kill somebody, and they said that they thought they seen him in the room. He didn't have nothing to do with the murder. He didn't do anything. Nigga did 25 years. 25 years. So this shit is not designed for you to win.
And that's the problem with these types of cases, is that it's triggering other conversations.
Yeah.
That, because when I get down to the bottom line in different dialogues with people, and a lot of people, like I said, they won't bring this case up to me, not really, because they understand, what issues I have in terms of not having people going and reporting that Tamika Mallory said this, that, and the third thing. We're not doing that, right? And so they know. But some of the men in my life have had extensive conversations. And I realize as I'm talking to them, they're dealing with a trauma that is far beyond this case.
Yeah.
But then that trauma, and I guess women do this as well,
of course,
becomes a part of another. And then I'm saying, like, just hear yourself. Hear what you're saying. Say that back to yourself, and put your son or your daughter or whatever in that situation. And then they'll be like, well, that's not exactly, what I mean. So I'm saying all of that to say we just need to be very careful. And I know for a fact that when I was 17, it's in my book. I write about it in the book. Finding out that this guy that I was dating, who I was so in love with, who was definitely older than me, the man had drugs and money. I don't think he had drugs. He had money in the floor of his house, right on Edgecombe Avenue. Had money in the floor of his house. And I'm just walking around like nothing, moving around with zip ties and laundry bags in the trunk. And I'm just happy to be there, knowing, my son, that I don't have anything to do with any of this. So when they ask me, I'm going to say, I don't know nothing about that, and they got to let me go because I'm not on no tapes. I didn't go nowhere. I didn't do nothing. And what I'm hearing is it don't work like that.
It don't work like that. It do not work like that. You saw something. You telling us you saw the money because we need you to testify that you saw the money.
But I don't want to testify because I don't even know nothing about that.
That's where the RICO comes in, because the fact that you saw the money and the money was part of this criminal enterprise, and you saw zip ties and you saw those things, and your logical mind should have told you that there was illegal activity. And if I
really didn't think that.
But I'm trying to tell you,
swear, and it took me a while.
But the thing is that you should have thought it. And if we're going to say, if you don't testify to what you saw, then we're going to say that you was an accomplice. And that's what they do. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. That's why it's not designed for us to win. But it's also triggering, right? Because, as a black man, and you look at whether they're guilty or not, it just seems to me like all of our black men who reach a certain status is something that has to do with sexual assault.
It's not all.
I'm the ones that they eliminate. The ones that have eliminated, it's the same situation. And I'm not saying it's not true or whatever. I'm just saying when we look at the top men who have been eliminated, it is around the same thing. And it's like, damn. It's like.
But I think that is a conversation it's a conversation that needs to be had. Yes, is the system problematic? For sure. But it's also about the choices that we make. And when we mix drugs with money and power, the lines get real blurred and a lot of things happen. And then you have stupidity also. Because I'm going to say, until the wheels fall off the bus, that Shannon Sharp, that was just stupid. And I'm not talking about drugs or any of that. I'm not accusing him of anything like that. But I'm just saying the judgment of being 50-something and getting yourself involved with a 19, whatever age, 20-year-old, nothing good can come of it. It's just no way that it's going to work out for you, because eventually, to Elliot Connie's point, you're using them purely for sex. Purely. And guess what happens? Eventually, they use you back. And you might not like the way you're used back. And by the way, they don't have anything to lose.
And I hear everything you're saying.
So we got to be more mindful of the choices we make.
The reality is, most of the 80-year-old rich men we know is dating women 40 and 50 years younger.
Why do y'all not understand?
Well, I'm just telling you, but I'm not saying we don't understand. We already established we understand it's a different playbook. But
no, that's not what I'm saying. But that wasn't what I was going to say.
Okay.
Why do y'all not understand that there is a difference in the mind of a 19, 20-year-old and a 40-year-old? So you can
So you don't think it's a difference in the mind of if I'm 80 and you're 30?
No.
You don't think that you...
No, 30 is going far.
These 80-year-olds is dating 23 and 24-year-old
And I think that's a problem.
That's what
I think that's a problem. But what I'm saying is that if I'm 40 and even 30-something and you're 80 or you're 70, that is a big difference between you being 40 and 50 and this person, woman or man, being 19 and 20.
His mind may be depraved. He's getting older.
Oh, Lord, please.
He's losing his senses.
So now you're saying that the 40-year-old woman is abusing the old man?
Yeah. As you start getting older, your mind, you're losing capacity, actually. A lot of men are losing. Why not? You don't think it's abuse?
Okay. I'm believe
You don't think so? Because
y'all are hilarious.
Because you know that we know that woman is purely
when
with that man.
When you 80 years old and
we know that the
me.
average 20-something-year-old woman that's with an 80-year-old man is there for one reason.
Money.
This is the bottom line. That's it.
Well, and then guess what happens? When the man throw you out and mistreat you, I don't want to hear it.
But you gonna hear it, because what happens is they're gonna say that something went wrong, and you still got the man's still gonna be held accountable. So that's just the reality. So that pretty much brings me to my I don't get it. Like I asked Royce about the situation with Meg and the new evidence in Tory Lanez case. I just don't get why Kelsey is not being arrested, right? And my theory behind it is this: I still. I believe that, the court got it right. That's just my personal opinion, just based off the evidence that I've seen, based off the conversation, based off the text messages from Kelsey, her testimony, the gun, where it was at, all of these things, him saying on Instagram that underneath her post that she didn't do, all these things led me to believe that the court's got it right. But let's say they did, right? Let's say she did shoot us. Let's say all these things happened. She's guilty of perjury. She didn't shoot her. Then she's still guilty of obstructing justice, because she had an opportunity. She still has the opportunity to tell the reality of what happened. Mm-hmm. The statement that she gave to the DA and to the investigators prior to the trial, which was heard in court, pretty much aligned with what Meg had said, right? Then when she went to court, obviously something changed, and she was being evasive, trying to plead the fifth, all types of things, came there with a lawyer, was granted immunity. All these things changed, right? So whatever happened in that dynamic, she was intentionally trying to obstruct justice. And if she got on that stand and she shot that lady and she didn't, when she was asked, did she shoot Megan? She said no. Mm-hmm. And if they're saying now that there's evidence saying that she did and is going to be presented, then she should be either charged with shooting her and them saying that she lied about saying that she didn't shoot her. And if she didn't shoot her, then she should be forced to actually have to give the real account of what happened openly in a trial.
Man, but we didn't get a chance to ask Royce, once you had immunity.
No, but we did because
in the same case. I don't know.
Yeah, we did say. He said that it's a whole different thing. It's obstructing justice. It's perjury. Because if you get immunity...
Because you have immunity is for the purpose of you telling the truth no matter how incriminating it is.
Exactly. And if they found out that you lied anytime during giving that statement, then the immunity goes out the window. Right? That's what they do. Like they have had mob bosses say, tell us all about everybody and we're going to give you immunity and everything is covered. If they find out one thing outside of that, it's not covered in an immunity. Right? If they find out you lied about one of those things, then the whole thing goes off the table. So in this situation, this lady committed perjury. One way or another, she committed perjury and she's obstructed justice. And I think, Tory Lanez is trying to figure out how to get home. He's going to figure out everything. He's going to pull every stop. That's what happens when you're in prison. Right, wrong, and indifference. Nobody wants to sit in jail for 10 years. She is the only person that has made testimony who has flip-flopped, and she's been accused of the actual shooting, and she's not being held accountable to even tell the full account of what happened or anything. And I think at this point, she's the person that should be in jail. I think Megan was trying to get justice for her. She believed that this happened.
I don't think she should be in jail.
She should be in jail. I think Kelsey,
not Tory. You think she should be the one to be?
I'm saying if you're going,
do you believe that a trial should take place?
I believe this.
A hearing.
I believe this. I think there should be a hearing, but I think either one of these two things makes you more culpable than anybody to me. Because if you were the person who were trying to shoot Meg and Tory, and you allowed him to go to jail for shooting her, then you should be in jail, which is not. Based on evidence, I don't really see that. But if that's what it is, and we find out that's true, then she should be in jail. If you weren't the person, and you're allowing this evidence to come out, you're allowing this continue to be put into the universe without being given clarification, then it's more than likely to me you took the bribe, right? So I think you either took the money and whatever it is, you are obstructing justice, and you need to go to jail. And I don't think that nobody's paying attention to it. I think, Meg, really, they're not. They're just, most people are saying Meg lied and Meg did this. Nobody's really focusing on Kelsey. There's really no backlash for Kelsey. I don't really see anybody when I go on these, Meg lied, she did this, and Kelsey is not getting. To me, Kelsey is more culpable than anybody else. And I think people should be calling for her to be arrested and for her to actually be charged with obstructing justice. And I think when you do that, we'll start getting to the bottom of actually what happened. Because I don't understand for the life of me how Tory Lanez sat there and said he was trying to protect her when she openly sent text message saying that he shot her, that he shot Meg, said he beat her up. He listened to a whole testimony of her, a whole tape of her giving a statement saying that he was the shooter. What are you trying to protect her for? Right? Why when you get up there and save your name? I would never do it. I don't know anybody else that's that brave or that heroic, right? You can't say that you was trying to protect Meg in my system because you spent over a year gaslighting the woman, saying that it was going to come out in court and the truth would be known and all these things, and you didn't do those things. So when you now all of a sudden you were trying to protect two black women, it doesn't really make sense to me. But let's say that theory is true. Kelsey should be in jail. That's just my position. At this point, it's like, come on, girl. You had the power to stop whatever it was. If you shot him and you shot her and this and that, you had the opportunity to do anything right. If you didn't shoot her, you had the opportunity to come forward and say, just be clear. But you're allowing this for whatever reason. You're allowing this to go too far, and you're just quiet. And I don't think she should have the right to just be quiet about a situation that's affecting other people's life, that you could just go home. Meg is going to be called a liar and this and that. Tory's going to be in jail and people are going to say that he shouldn't be there. There's going to be all of this stuff that people are dealing with, and you're just sitting in the house and you're the main piece of this, and there's no consequences for nothing that you've done. I just don't think that's okay.
Okay.
It's just my personal position.
I don't. I just feel like we're living in a world that is so weird that I don't even know how to discuss it. There's no amount of money you could pay me to make me believe that that woman was in the car with a man she don't know, that she just met, and that she just said in front of that man casually that she was the person responsible for for shooting Meg Thee Stallion. There is nothing, nobody can pay me. But to your point, just like I said about all these other people, if someone brings that type of charge against you, or they feel like they know and they think they can prove it, they deserve to have their day in court. And so I want to see it play out. I want to see it play out anyway. As I already said that. I want to see it play out because I just want to see it play out. I want to see what happens with the court. I want to see it all just play out. And
I do too, man. But I'm going to give a breakdown on my YouTube page about this because I really have real deep conversation. I don't want to dive too deep into it here. But it's just a lot. It's really telling where we are in media, social media, just in this world, and how a narrative can be spun so deep that it's in this rabbit hole that the facts get so muddy and misconstrued that people ignore the facts and we just deal with the fiction. And people understand that. There are people like Donald Trump who understands that I don't have to tell the truth. Right? I can just say what the fuck I want and y'all gonna grab it. Nobody cares about the truth if it's more entertaining, if a lie is more entertaining. People want to grab onto something. If I continue to throw out bullshit and just say bullshit and y'all grab onto it without doing any research or anything, that's what happens. People are saying, oh, her bodyguard. This is her quote-unquote bodyguard. Kelsey didn't have a bodyguard. This is a driver who drove with her for probably about an hour or 2 hours within a 2 days period to go to court and home. Right? This within the two, but they say this is her bodyguard. Nobody even is doing the research to say, no, this was the driver who drove her to court. Where did this driver even come from? Where did she get it?
Well, she didn't know how. She didn't
even know who paid for her lawyer. They asked her, did Tory pay for your lawyer?
She's stupid enough to go in there.
Maybe
in the car
she
with
was,
this
and
man
if she
never
was,
met or don't know this man.
From a hole in the wall.
And the man sat there, heard this with a person he doesn't know, that he has no particular loyalty. He doesn't know her. And another man was going through this, and he sat there and said, nah, I ain't going to say nothing because I'm loyal to this girl who's in here admitting in front of me.
I mean, this is
y'all got it. I mean, if that's what y'all want to run with, I'm cool with it. I'm not.
It is what it is.
I wouldn't sit here and say, oh, this is stupid and it needs to just be dismissed. No. I think they should go right on down the rabbit hole. I think they should too.
Let's go down the rabbit hole.
All I know is that I went to court. That's all I'm going to keep saying. So I went to court. And I know what the jury heard.
And
all of the shit that gets the social media jury, that's not the one that be in the court. In the court is the real jury, right? Now, can juries be biased? Absolutely. Did this jury just see him as a black man that they want to send to jail? From the makeup of the jurors, I don't think so. But it's possible that there was some bias in every single one of those jurors' mind that was of a cross-section of racial backgrounds. It's not like the all-white jury. Mm-hmm. It was a cross-section of individuals. Were they biased and they just wanted to throw him in jail? Cool. Was the judge paid off? And because that's ain't going to be their thing. Rock Nation paid for the prosecutor, the judge, the jury,
everything,
every single body, every party,
because if you can say it, it becomes facts. You don't have to prove anything.
But I pray that they find a way to prove other people wrong if they can. And that's all I'm just leave it at that, because to tell you the truth, I think focus. I sit back and I listen and I see certain things in certain people and I just say to myself, wow.
Yeah, we in some very strange times, man. We in very strange times. So
well, there's that.
But there's that, man. That brings us to an end of another episode of TMI. Make sure you continue to follow us. Tell us you love us. Tell us you hate us.
No, they don't. I don't know why you welcome people to tell us.
Because I want to be loved and hated.
You should tell them to tell you that on your page. But don't come tell me you hate me. I don't need to know. I'm sorry. Not interested.
Make sure you follow us and tell us what you want to hear from us. Tell us you love me. Don't tell her you hate her. Just tell her you love her. And let us know who you want us to interview. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. We just want to hear from you. Continue to make us the #1 podcast in the world. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at TMI_show. And then follow us on YouTube at TMI Show PC. Yeah. We love you. I'm not going to always be right. Tamika D Mallory's not going to always be wrong, but we both always, and I mean always, be authentic.
Peace.
That's how we own it.